All right, fellas. So, been a minute. We've been on, man, a couple weeks. We're glad to be back. I know NFL. I was looking around. As we was talking offline, and it's been kind of slow with some things, but there's still some things going on. Lee, I know you had mentioned that the show, The Quarterback, that's on Netflix. I know I had watched the whole last season. It was pretty good. It was legit. Watching that show. So I didn't know that this new season had come out. You just mentioned this new season had come out with the quarterback. So talk a little bit about that, man. Like who's on that, and what's the some of the storylines that you've seen so far.
Well, I mean, they got two jumps out, right? You have Kirk Cousins and Jared Goff. The promos kind of showcasing those two specifically, and I think that they're basically carrying the season anyway. But some sound bites from it. You got Cousins saying that, well, had he known the Falcons were going to draft a quarterback, particularly that high in the draft, that he would have probably reconsidered his options. I think he goes into saying that they really, him and his family, they had no reason to really leave the Vikings.
Okay.
There, and he probably more than likely would have stayed. But one would also say that the Vikings were not going to pay him over $118 million of guaranteed money.
Right.
I think these are just, his feelings are still coming out, and he's a little bit butthurt because of the fact that, they picked up the quarterback, but they did pay him handsomely for that move. And we know money talks, right? So think or thought more highly of himself than, I guess. And really, that's not even really it. He came in, they gave him a chance. He
Yeah.
just didn't perform. He
Yeah.
didn't perform.
Yeah.
He didn't perform, right? He's coming off the Achilles injury as well. So you got to put that into play. But if he was doing what he was supposed to do, they were not looking to pull him. They wanted him actually to play the whole season and prove himself. And when I think about quarterbacks like that and who are put in that situation, it reminds me back in the day of John Elway.
Mm.
So we all know John Elway. I think he went to 5 Super Bowls, 1-2. Right? Is that right, Doc? He went to 5, 1-2. And this was during a time when he had lost his third Super Bowl. So this is before he won the 2 with Terrell Davis.
Right.
Right. And he had lost 3 Super Bowls, and he was coming into like the twilight, not quite there, but he was right at the precipice, right, of his career. And the Broncos, they drafted Tommy Maddox
Yeah.
first round in the first round. And it was a shocker. No one expected, because everybody still had Elway, he was a top 5 quarterback. You didn't hear Elway crying. You didn't see nothing in the papers and in the media about him being disgruntled. I'm pretty sure he was, but nothing came out, and all he did was make sure Tommy Maddox didn't see the light of day.
Exactly.
That's all he did, right?
Yeah.
He went in, did his thing, and he continued to play at a high level. Got them to 2 more Super Bowls and won them too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because see, sometimes players like it's a show me now league, right? What have you done lately? So you could be great. Tom Brady had to deal with it with Belichick. Belichick never gave him any slack.
Right.
Belichick was always drafting quarterbacks, maybe not as high. I think the highest quarterback he had drafted was Garoppolo, and that didn't sit well with Tom. But Tom Brady was always his position was always being threatened by Belichick. He never let him settle or make him feel comfortable that he's irreplaceable. And that's what the greats do. They always have that mindset that, look, next man up, or potentially I could be out the door and somebody could take my spot. So you live up to the pressure and you do what you're supposed to do, and you perform.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins didn't do that, right?
Yeah.
So he's now in a position where he's playing backup, and he was trying to force his hand in a trade to get out of there. But the Falcons wasn't budging on that. They're very comfortable with him backing up the rookie. Well, not the rookie now, but So yeah. So you got that, and then the other one is Jared Goff, and he's doing very well for himself with the Lions, but he's still resurfacing his feelings about how the Rams got rid of him. I think he went as far as to say the Rams was anticipating that his career would have died with shipping him to Detroit, which I don't think that was the case. I just think that they just really wanted Matt. See, the thing is, the Rams sending him to Detroit had absolutely nothing
Right.
to do
Yeah.
with Goff.
Right.
It had everything to do with just getting Matthew Stafford, right? I promise you, if Matthew Stafford was with the 49ers and they had a chance to get him, which we know that a trade like that would have never happened,
Right.
but
Right.
they still would have made that trade. It didn't matter who the team was, right? But he took it personally, and I guess it's well within his right. He felt some kind of way about it, but
Lee, no,
yeah,
Lee, not just that. The Lions GM, where'd he come from?
he came from the Rams. He came
Yeah.
from the
So
Rams,
the
Yeah.
Lions GM knew what he
Right.
could do.
right?
Yeah.
Right. And the Lions GM targeted Goff. So it was a mutual decision on both fronts,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is why I don't understand why he's still, like, all these years later, still feeling that kind of way about the Rams shipping him there, because it was really Detroit that wanted him just as badly as the Rams wanted Stafford,
Yeah.
right?
Man, I mean, he wanted to win a Super Bowl, man. I mean,
He had,
he gets shipped out, and then y'all win the
He
he
didn't
Super
win.
Bowl.
had a chance. He had a chance, right? He had a chance to win the Super Bowl. He didn't do it. Matt came in and he had his chance, and what he do?
He won the Super Bowl.
Right? He
Yeah.
won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Minus two starters at wide receiver. He had one receiver, no running back, no tight end, half of offensive line. And this dude, he came out, he won the Super Bowl. What did Goff have? Right? He had all his receivers, Brandon Cooks, Robert Woods, right? Todd Gurley. What did he do? What did he do? He put up 3 points.
Yeah. That's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah. Going. Okay. All right. Your boy Goff. I mean, look, I would say this. I would say that he's in the right spot for him. I don't know what's going to happen to him now since Ben Johnson is gone
Mhm.
in Detroit. So that's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen this year. But we saw what happened in the playoffs, right? So that remains to be seen. But I want to back up a little bit to Kirk Cousins. So Doc,
Yes.
Kirk Cousins is talking about the Vikings would keep him. He shouldn't have made this decision. But I mean, did the Vikings even want to keep him? I mean, you got JJ McCarthy right there getting ready to, come in and play in this, this his inaugural season after, sitting his first season, so does Kirk Cousins have any validity there? I mean, as a Vikings fan?
I think if Kirk Cousins knew the Rams was if he knew the Falcons could draft a quarterback higher than the Vikings drafted a quarterback, he would have considered just staying where he was comfy, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, where the Vikings going to pay him $120 million guaranteed, now talking about year 5 on, year 6 on with the organization. And I'm not any guy making any money, especially in pro football, just because of how tenuous your ability to play is. But that is a very well compensated quarterback if you look at the money Kirk Cousins has made through the years, right? If there's ever been a Toyota Corolla that got paid like it's a Lexus,
Yeah.
it's Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
Reliable, dependable, but ain't flashy and ain't going anyway. So no, I don't think the Vikings were going to pay him $30 million a year guaranteed, $40 million a year guaranteed at that point, because we already did that and we saw where it got us.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and there's a reason why we went and drafted JJ McCarthy. It was to get someone young, talented, while we paid the best receiver in football
Yeah.
$30 million a year.
Yeah.
And so we have that window before we got to figure that out, right? So I don't think from the Viking standpoint it was going to make that difference. He was already looking for houses in Atlanta before
Right.
that whole thing went down. So
Yeah.
Right. So yeah.
And the thing is, he acting as if there was a big discrepancy in the draft positions between those two teams. Right?
That's true.
Falcons drafted Penix just two spots higher than McCarthy was drafted by the Vikings. Just two. Right? Maybe he's looking at what the Vikings did, or how that all played out with the Vikings in terms of how Sam Darnold was able to finish that whole season and play it out. thinking that if he had stayed, he would have at least been able to play the whole season. But that's anticipating that he would have played at the level that Sam Darnold played.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I don't even think he would have played at the level of Sam Darnold. He wouldn't have
No,
played at that level. So,
no.
I mean, Kirk Cousins is who he is. He's going to look good for about 5 games. And then after those 5 games, that's it. You're going to get what you get.
But not only that, he was coming off of an Achilles injury.
Achilles injury
And we
too.
all know, yeah, they say that it takes about a year for it to heal. But in actuality, you need about a year and a half to close to 2 years to get back to where you were. Yeah, it's healed
Yeah.
enough for you to play,
Yeah.
but you still can't move around and do the things that you were accustomed to doing before the injury until maybe close to 2 years out, right? So he was not himself going
Mm.
into last season.
Yeah.
So he wasn't gonna play the way he would have accustomedly played, regardless.
And then he supposedly said sometime during the season he got hurt, but then he was worried that if he sat and let Penix play, he wouldn't get the job back. So that's why he had that 3 to 4 game window where he had like 0 touchdowns and 8 interceptions.
Right. We talked about this, Doc. When the Falcons drafted Penix, right? Lynx, I got on the phone with Doc and I said, Cousins going to lose that spot. And the reason why is because when Penix get to camp and they see Penix throw the ball, and then they compare that to how Cousins throw the ball,
Yeah. Yeah.
Cousins himself will know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
this
about
dude
time.
better.
Yeah.
It's about
Yeah.
time.
He better because I watched him in college when he was what? No, wait, that's one of the
That's
prettiest
the
throws
pretty
of the ball
ball.
I've
Yeah.
ever seen.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
He-
But because
No man, he throw the ball like Ken Griffey Jr. swing the bat.
Yes.
Like it is
Smooth.
pretty to watch.
Yeah.
It is just pretty to watch him throw the ball.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. The thing
Yeah.
is, like I say, Kirk Cousins is where he is. He should be a backup at this point. And the Falcons, when the Falcons picked Penix, I was like, man, what are the Falcons doing? I mean, they just paid. But hey, I mean, they wasted money, but you got Penix and you got a backup quarterback. But you paid a heck of a lot of money for a backup quarterback.
this is not the way I would run an organization, right? But if you figure you paying $50 million for your 2 quarterbacks, and you paying Cousins 30, 35, 40, and you're gonna pay your rookie quarterback 5-10, and if he ends up taking over, it's the same salary cap essentially. So now you got your quarterback and you got your backup, and then by the time Cousins is ready to retire, you got to pay Penix, but you're already kind of used to that money going to Cousins, and now you're gonna give it all to Penix. You're kind of having your salary cap kind of situated where you could absorb that jump a little bit better. Now, the reason I don't like it is that $30-40 million could go to a wide receiver or a left tackle or an edge rusher or a cornerback to help your team be better.
Yeah.
In the meantime, but
Yep.
I think sometimes folks are like, well, we're just going to do it this way. We have the security either direction. And then when it's time for Penix to get paid, it's only like a $15 or $20 million difference because we're used to $45-50 million going to quarterbacks anyway. Not the way I would do it, but it's kind of backward sense. So
I want to shed some light though on the situation, right? I typically wouldn't want to do it that way either. But when you look at the situation itself, you got Raheem Morris now. He's a new he's like the new coach now for the Falcons that season.
Mm-hmm.
He was a head coach like 10 years ago. He's one of the youngest, probably at that time, the youngest head coach in the league.
Yeah.
With the Bucs.
Yeah.
That's what gave him a start. And that didn't go well for him, right? Because why? He didn't have a quarterback.
you know, quarterback.
A coach didn't have a quarterback. So now he bounced around, then ended up with the Rams, but he was a defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator for a little stint, special teams coordinator, right? Bouncing around, doing all these coordinator jobs. Took him over 10 years to get this position again. So I think happened, and the mindset was, okay, I finally got another chance. I'm going to overvalue this position to make sure
It's
at
set.
the very least I got some stability.
Yeah.
I overpaid I think he overpaid for stability.
Yeah.
And with the mindset of this is temporary, I see someone that can be my franchise guy going into the future, but I don't know if he's going to be ready out the gates. I want to give him time.
Yeah.
So we pull him in. We pay this guy all this money to come in and set the ship. And hey, if he flop, he flop. And if this guy come in and take it over, that's great. If it doesn't, if Penix isn't ready and Cousins is able to get us through the season, at least we don't look like trash.
Yeah.
I think
That
that
makes
was
sense.
the mindset. You see what I'm saying? And
That makes sense.
I would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
If I was in his shoe, if I'm a new coach with that history, I'm overpaying for the quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, if I've been there for 5, 6, 7 years, then there's no way I was getting.
Yeah. Yeah. That's job security. They're working on his job security. They got to look at one thing. You still got Drake London. You got a young tight end, and you got arguably a top 5 running back on your team, Falcons. Also, that their contract's going to be coming up pretty soon. Well, they still on their rookie contract, so they got probably another 3 years or so to come up. So it's going to be that's going to be an ongoing thing with them too, because Penix is going to be in that same mix, in the next 3-4 years with these rookie contracts expiring and seeing what
5 years.
5 years.
They're going to pick up the option on him.
Yeah. So, all right. So, Doc, I know you had mentioned this collusion case
Right.
with the with the NFLPA. I didn't even hear about this, man. I mean, this they must have kept this real quiet, man. So, explain a little bit about that. What's going on?
So, hey, and this can take a little bit of a backstory. So when Deshaun Watson signed that big guaranteed contract with the Browns, everyone was like, "Oh, now is this resetting the market? Are there going to be new quarterbacks getting these fully guaranteed deals?" And when it was Lamar Jackson, it was Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson, all signed new deals, and none of them had the guaranteed money that Deshaun had. Folks were like, "This seemed a little suspect." So I think DeMaurice Smith was the NFLPA executive director at the time. He filed a not a lawsuit, but there was an arbitration about whether there was collusion by the owners. So 3 years during the time Smith's deposed, there's a now new guy named Howell is the new executive director of the NFLPA. And in January, the arbitrator rules that there wasn't enough evidence to prove collusion, but there was a lot of evidence saying that Roger Goodell and I think Jeff Pash, like the counsel general for the NFL, were sort of like suggesting the owners don't be given that guaranteed money, right? So it wasn't collusion. The siblings weren't working with each other, but mommy and daddy was telling them what to do, right? Okay. So, but the thing is, it came out 2 weeks ago, the details of that. So between January and like 2 weeks ago, all the players heard was they lost arbitration. Period, full stop. But they didn't get any of the details, none of the nuance, none of what was found and what the evidence to suggest this or that, which would have been nice going into free agency to know some stuff had been whispered about trying to keep the guaranteed money low, right?
Right.
So now today it comes out that there was a confidentiality agreement between the NFL and the NFLPA to not tell the players the specifics of the findings.
That's ridiculous, man.
Right? So now the players are like, why didn't the NFLPA, our association, tell us that there was evidence of at least influence from the league about trying to, keep the guaranteed money low, especially for them big mega contracts? And so why would the guy who's in charge, like running the NFLPA, not let the players know this information when your job is to represent the players, right? And so there's this whole thing now about, well, why was this happen? Why now all of a sudden the players union is going to file an appeal on the arbitrator's ruling when that could have been done for the last 6 months, but only now the stuff's come to light all of a sudden we're gonna appeal this and see what a 3-person panel decides ultimately. But so for all the stuff about DeMarcus Smith, I think, and being, losing that, and the new executive director, people are now starting to question: does he really, truly, 100% have the players in mind? And if he did, why wasn't this information relayed to like the 10-player executive panel of the NFLPA, much less the players themselves? And it seemed to be the lawyers and a couple people in the NFL and NFLPA, but like none of the players knew.
Yeah, this is a underhanded money exchange, keeping the players out of what's going on, because and this and Lee, I think you mentioned this offline. This has been going on for years. This kind of stuff, the NFL covering it up
Yep.
and sweeping it under the rug, getting rid of stuff, not telling the players what's going on, and just this all this reeks of is the NFLPA and the NFL are in bed together, and really that's just how it is. They could appear to be on your side as a player, but there needs to be more checks and balances. There needs to be, and I even think if there was like a third party outside of this, and that's what the arbitrator's supposed to be, but independent third party, they still will get paid off. There's no way around it, man. I don't see any way.
Real quick. So if you really want to go back from Paul Tagliabue and Gene Upshaw,
Boy, that's
There you
far.
go.
there was always this sort of why they so cool with each other. And while the league blossomed having labor peace for decades, because the NBA had lockouts and strikes, baseball had lockouts and strikes, hockey had lockouts and strikes, and the NFL from like the 1980s just been cool, right? But it's like, hey, there's this hard salary cap, right? Like, what we giving up to get stuff? Hey, there's this rookie wage scale. Like, what's going on? And so folks there's always kind of been some back channels. Why it's too peaceful, right? And so now when this specifically comes out, where there's this guy who's paid to run, the NFLPA, head the NFLPA, and it's like, well, like, what's this? Why is there a confidentiality agreement? Why aren't the players in the loop on stuff? It starts to again bring about this whole NFLPA at the highest levels. Are they working in concert? Are they in bed with each other? And the players ain't the wiser for it.
Yeah, yeah. That's what it is. I mean, and it's not going to change. It's going to stay the same. Like you said, I mean, you went all the way back with Tagliabue and Upshaw. I mean, shoot. So I mean, this been going on. They probably they go over to each other's house smoking cigars and just chumming it up with each other. And I'm not saying you can't be cordial with the person and stuff, but I mean, when you represent when you represent players against the NFL, you supposed to have something. And that's a good point. There's never been a lockout. By now it would have been something if it was true checks and balances, and it was true like you really looking at for the players' best interest. But they let some things slide through, and then other things they say, "Nah, we're not gonna do that. We agree on this. We're not gonna let that happen."
Yeah. Especially when you see the way that everything is situated is so heavily skewed against the players.
Right? Yeah.
And the owners are benefiting. The ratio is lopsided. It's completely lopsided. The only position on the player side that's really winning is the quarterback. And the only reason that's the case is because the owners and the executives on the NFL side see that as, okay, that is the premium position that needs to be satisfied because that's selling the tickets.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the only reason why.
Yeah.
Everybody else, they just begging for scraps.
That's crazy, man. That's ridiculous. So anyway, this will continue. Lee, on another note, I was watching a what's the guy's name? FS1. You have Shady is on there, James Jones and Acho, right? Yeah, and so they had Lane Johnson on from the Eagles, and they was just asking him series of questions and stuff like that. Preparing for next year, and this and that and that. But they asked him one question, knowing you were a Rams fan. They asked him. They said, "Man, so what was the toughest team? We know you guys had like some turmoil early in the season, and then you turned it around and went to playoffs, etc. But what was the toughest team that you guys faced on your run? And I know you and I had talked about this before previously, and I had said it was you guys, the Rams, that was like the toughest. And I was thinking about this today, and I was like, man, that game was pretty close. I mean, and he mentioned this. He said of all the games, he said this game could have went in any direction at any time. And man, I was just, I was outside mowing the lawn and I was thinking about this and I was like, shoot, man, thank you, Jalen Carter. I appreciate that, man, because you're right. I mean, you guys could have been there, man, but hats off to you guys, man. I mean, you got a young team, young DBs, young DBs. You got Matt Stafford. You got Verse. You got your other DN. Y'all looking good, man. Y'all looking good.
Links, your Eagle fandom never ceases to amaze. I don't know if that was supposed to make me feel good or if that was a compliment, right? But you always find a way to keep rehashing this game. Yeah, I know it was close. I watched it. I understand that we was that close to making it to the Super Bowl. We lost, but I don't know how about anything of what you said is supposed to make me feel any kind of positivity. There's no butterflies and there's no award for giving it our best, right? We lost the game.
Yeah.
Yes, you won a tough one. Yes.
It was so close.
It was so close. I know.
And look, from my point of view, I'm just giving you guys your props, man. Giving y'all some serious props because you will be this year.
Yeah.
You guys are gonna be one of them teams that everybody gonna be looking behind their back on. Trying to say these guys are dangerous. So McVay, and McVay does this, man. McVay is such a smart coach. He does this kind of thing where you lose Aaron Donald. I mean, you lose Aaron Donald, and then you pick up some other dudes who just fill in the gap and just jump in there. So I'm just impressed with that guy.
I know Howie Roseman gets a lot of credit for being a great GM, and it's deservedly so, right? And you mentioned McVay, but Les Snead does not get the credit that he deserves.
That's a good one, yeah.
A lot of people don't talk about him enough. He is one heck of a GM. Howie Roseman aside, I wouldn't want no other GM.
Yeah.
For the Rams, right? He always stocks up, he reloads. He doesn't rest on his laurels, even when the mid-season acquisitions, right? Just to double down and make sure that the momentum can be carried over. I look back at the year that we did win the Super Bowl, the most recent one, and we was trucking along. Everything was great. We had Cup, we had Robert Woods, and things were going great. And they picked up Odell Beckham. And then the very next week, Woods goes out with an ACL.
Yeah.
So now imagine if we didn't make that move.
That's right.
We probably wouldn't have been able to make it to the Super Bowl, right? So like he has foresight. He's always like 3 steps ahead. So that whole Aaron Donald thing, him, retiring and then us kind of restocking up on that defensive line, that's all Les Snead, man.
Yeah. That is true. Les Snead, great GM. So how long has Les Snead been with the Rams, and where was he before that?
So before he was with the Rams, he was with the Falcons.
Okay. God, that's why I remember his name. Yeah. Okay.
With the Falcons, not a GM, but he was part of their brain trust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He was one of the main proponents of them. Remember that big trade up that they made to get Julio Jones?
Yes.
Right? He moved up like
Yes.
15 spots.
But they gave up all kind of stuff. Yeah.
First, second,
Leslie,
third, fourth.
But that was
Leslie,
that.
you don't remember who was in that draft except for
That's
one of
it.
the
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So he was always that guy. And so when the Rams when they hired Jeff Fisher,
Yes.
Jeff Fisher tapped Les Snead as his GM.
Okay.
And so in comes Les Snead, and Les Snead gives Jeff Fisher all of these, Michael Brockers, Todd Gurley. He gave him Aaron Donald, right? Giving him Tavon Austin, all of these guys. And Jeff Fisher can't win no games.
He can't do nothing with him.
So I thank the Rams ownership and the executive team because they see, okay, the GM is not the problem. They got rid of Jeff Fisher, brought in Sean McVay, and we go to the playoffs for the first time in 10 years
Boom.
in one season.
In one season.
With that team that he already had for Full Boy, right?
Yeah.
I think we picked up Sammy Watkins and Robert Woods, but everybody else was drafted.
And remember, Lee, the beginning of in the preseason, y'all was acquiring wide receivers.
That's what I mentioned.
And I was talking to you saying y'all doing stuff like y'all expect to be in the playoffs because this is what playoff teams do, and y'all went.
Yeah,
You was super excited because you were like, you could feel the energy that we got someone what they're doing now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, like you say, those things don't come every day. There's some franchises that are suffering with bad GMs, bad coaches, and they just can't get out of that cycle. So, you could tell teams that's winning Super Bowls, that GM head coach combo is so important, man. I mean, that is that's so important that's in cohesion. They know the players to get that could go in this scheme and execute, and the coach that knows how to knows what players are going to do in offense and defense, and put all that together. So yeah, that's awesome to have that combo of head coach and GM.
Let me add some links. Because I saw this. This was on I think NFL Live today, and they were talking about your division.
Mm.
Do you feel that there's a possibility of any one of those other teams winning the NFC East except for the Eagles?
No.
And if so,
no.
He said,
Now, I know there's a lot of hype around the Commanders, right? There's a lot of hype around the Commanders, and deservedly so. They have a great quarterback. Jaden Daniels is amazing. There's no hate for me on him. I legitimately, when we play them, I am afraid because of him. So because he can make things happen. Given that, they still don't have a full team. They have pieces, but they don't have a full team. Jaden Daniels could will them. I mean, he willed them all the way to the NFC Championship game, or beat the Detroit Lions, who everybody say was going to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. So he can will them to get places if they fill in that roster. If they fill in that roster, they could be dangerous. I don't think they're there yet. They are close. Don't get me wrong. They could be one of those teams that could, do something. But I don't see them winning. I don't see them winning. I know everybody got them up there like that, but I don't think it's going to be any difference. I think the Eagles are there. Dallas Cowboys, they are what they are. They ride. They go with Dak Prescott, and Dak Prescott is just not a top caliber quarterback. Consistency, you just don't have it. I mean, and until they change that, I think they got pieces. They got CeeDee Lamb. You just you just bring in another wide receiver. Who do they bring in? Who's the other? Pickens. They bring in Pickens. They got some. Again, they got pieces there, but it's not full. It's not. They can do some things. They could win games. But I don't think they're gonna win. And then the Giants ain't doing nothing. Look again. They look at the GM. Okay, the GM, and I think they just. I saw this too. Jackson Dart just signed his rookie contract. Rookie. They are going to regret. I'm saying this right now. They're going to regret picking Jackson Dart. Watch. Watch, because they could have waited, and this is going to lead into my next to what I got for you guys. They could have waited, and they could have gotten a quarterback in this upcoming draft or after that, but they had to go for Jackson Dart, and I'm telling you, they're going to regret. Jackson Dart is going to be another. No, I can't even say that. I can't say that. Let me take that back. I was going to say Jackson Dart was going to be another Eli Manning, but Eli Manning won 2 Super Bowls. Yeah, he won 2 Super Bowls, so I can't even say that. So Eli Manning, much respect. You know, it is what it is. Jackson Dart, he ain't gonna be it. I'm telling you. So I don't. I think the Eagles still gonna be there. It's not gonna be as easy. It's not gonna be as easy, but I think the moves that Howie has made, and where the offense is still in place, I don't listen and think about this. The NFC East has never had a back-to-back winner in the last
Like
20
20
years
years.
or so. I mean, it's been a while.
Yeah.
But I think this year is gonna be different. I don't see anybody else stepping up there and getting that.
Yeah. If it's not Washington,
20 years.
it ain't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It ain't gonna be
It's
Dallas, and it ain't gonna be the Giants.
Nah.
So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't see it.
Let me I'll put this out here. I just have a sneaky feeling that, and because everybody know that there's always that team lightning in the ball, like they just catch a lucky
True.
break.
Yeah,
And it's something about the way Brian Schottenheimer carries himself
yeah,
and the way he communicates. Him being a coach's son, he's not a really good coordinator, but he seems to be wearing that head coaching hat pretty well,
yeah, yeah.
right? If he is able to delegate the way that I think he's delegating, I just think they could be dangerous.
Don't jump on that bandwagon.
No, 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 don't say that. No, I'm not jumping on any bandwagon.
Yeah,
I'm just this is an observation,
yeah.
right? Because I don't want to get blindsided.
I got you.
You
I
know,
got you.
I can't
Yeah,
stand that, right? But
yeah,
I don't want to get blindsided by it. It's just that it's something about Schottenheimer where, because I followed Schottenheimer.
yeah.
I don't like him. Like, and when I say not him personally or nothing about his character, it's just about his coaching style because to me, he's a poor offensive coordinator.
Right. Yeah,
None of
yeah,
the offenses in any of the teams that he OC'd have been top caliber. None of
yeah,
them,
yeah.
right? But again, we all know that as a head coach, a true head coach, right? That's a totally different set of responsibilities.
True, true.
You have top flight coordinators who are great on their side of the ball that become head coaches and they stink up the joint, right? And then you have guys who you don't even really know what they do as a coordinator. John Harbaugh, they come in and they become a head coach, and now all of a sudden they're the cream of the crop.
Right, right, right. Yeah,
This is what I'll say. We may see next year, and for the next couple of years, Brian Schottenheimer could very well end up being a better head coach than Ben Johnson, right?
okay. Yeah, okay. And I agree with you on that point. The only thing is the one caveat with that is, and I think if he's following in the footsteps of his dad, and he was probably misaligned as an offensive coordinator, and might be, like you say, it might be a better head coach than he was a coordinator, and that remains to be seen. But there's still the obstacle of Dak Prescott that's there.
Well, not only that, there's a huge obstacle of Jerry Jones.
Jerry Jones.
And Jerry Jones.
So that's that's the main obstacle right there.
Yeah, Jerry Jones. I mean, it speaks for itself. So yeah, but yeah, I agree with you on that.
This is a conversation me and Lee had offline, but the question is, as he alluded to, you have great coordinators who become horrible head coaches, or great coordinators who become great head coaches. Poor coordinators typically don't even get the chance to become a coordinator. And there's a subset that may be excellent head coaches, but because they didn't excel as an offensive coordinator, they never get the chance, right? If he wasn't in Dallas, if they didn't have to let McCarthy go, they couldn't find someone to come in to take the job. He cool with Dak. He understands how the organization goes. Okay, we gonna give this guy a chance. And now, I mean, the dude's talking the talk like he's been destined to be a head coach his entire life. Like he got all of Dallas waiting for September because he doing coach speak and he comes across genuine. I'm not saying he's Dick Vermeil, but that like genuine family culture. I want y'all to love each other like brothers. He has a conversation going in Dallas that typically hasn't been here, right?
Yeah.
Now we're gonna see what happens when play starts. But to
Right.
Lee's point, this guy's doing Marty Schottenheimer better than Marty Schottenheimer,
Yeah.
right? With the
Yeah.
rah-rah speeches and getting folks to bond together. And the question is, if he actually ends up being an above average head coach, what took so long? Because he's been in the league for this long and got the Schottenheimer name.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Doc, because and again, you mentioned a coach right there, Mike McCarthy, right? People forget about this. Before he went to the Green Bay Packers, where he did win the Super Bowl.
Mhm.
Yes, he had Aaron Rodgers, but other coaches had Aaron Rodgers and couldn't win the Super Bowl, right? He was with the 49ers as their offensive coordinator. The year before he got the head coaching job for the Green Bay Packers, the 49ers was what, 4-12.
Mm.
The offense
Right.
stunk. They had a horrible offense. And I always wondered about that because when he went to Green Bay and he was winning, I was saying to myself, why, how did that happen? Because he was not a good offensive coordinator.
Right.
Or at least he was in a situation where he probably didn't have the tools, right, to run his offense the right way. It could have been any number of combinations because that we always pinpoint one person as the focal issue of the problem.
Mhm.
And more often than not in the NFL, it's a combination of things that causes the problem,
Yeah.
not just one,
That's true.
right? And so, to Doc's point again, like a lot of these guys who are in bad spots, who for whatever reason they're not performing or the performance don't stack up to what people think that they're owed an opportunity. They never get that opportunity,
Right. Yeah.
right? The guy out of Texas, right, the guy they just let go, Slowick, just 2 years ago, he was hot,
Right.
Lighten up
Right.
the league.
right? Lighting up the league last year, right? Offense wasn't doing nothing, but everybody, he got fired, but everybody identified the offensive line as being the worst offensive line in the league. So why was it his fault?
Right.
That the quarterback was under constant pressure, and the offense couldn't get generated. Why was he the scapegoat?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? There's politics in this, man.
Yeah. Definitely.
Now his name is not on the top of anybody's list. He's not getting any call for a head coaching job, and he probably could be a good head coach.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That's true. It is a lot of politics and a lot of moving parts that go into this. So, okay. Lastly, I wanted to spring this on you guys, and see what your thoughts are. So, talking about the NFL draft, which just happened, but we're looking into next year, and I just talked about Jackson Dart, right? Right. I just talked about Jackson Dart with the New York Giants. I was reading this story about Arch Manning, and Arch Manning went to Texas, right? Knowing that Quinn Ewers was there, right? And knowing that he was not going to start, and also sitting, right? Because this is his second. He was a freshman last year, right? So he's going in his sophomore year, right? Or
He's
was
going. He's
Redshirt.
going to.
He's a
okay
redshirt sophomore now.
redshirt sophomore?
Yeah.
Okay, so now he's going in, and as one of the highly touted young quarterbacks in college that he could potentially get drafted this year or next year, the next year, right? He could potentially enter the NFL draft after this college season, right?
Yes. I don't think he
Right.
will, but yes.
Yeah. Knowing the Manning family and the clout that they have in that family, with two brothers as quarterbacks, and Cooper was a quarterback too, just didn't make it.
He was a wide receiver.
Wide receiver.
Wide receiver. But the whole family with this quarterback culture and pedigree, do you guys think, based on, I don't know, based on just, because he hadn't Arch hadn't played yet, right? But based on what everybody's talking about, do you think that Arch Manning could be a prototypical Manning? Is he going to carry the name? Does it look like that? Like he can do that?
He did play a couple of games, portions of it pretty small, right? So the sample size, there's still much more to be desired in terms of seeing what he can do in different types of football situations.
Right.
But what I saw, when we think of the prototypical Manning quarterback, you kind of think of Peyton and Eli.
Mm-hmm.
We forget about their dad,
Their dad,
Archie
yeah. Yeah.
Manning,
Yeah.
who was also a Hall of Fame quarterback. And his style is completely different than Peyton and Alec and Eli's. Archie Manning, right? His style of play looks more like his grandfather's,
Wow. Yeah.
right? Because Archie, the grandfather, he was
Yeah.
mobile.
Yeah.
He had
Yeah.
to run for his life almost every play,
Yep.
Right. Right.
and he was making something out of nothing. And ironically enough, like I said, Archie, his dad is Cooper,
Right.
who didn't play quarterback. He played wide receiver,
I receiver.
and he got those wide receiver athletic skills from his dad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And he has that, and he can throw the ball,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I think he's going to come in and he's going to be more so skewed towards his grandfather's style of play, prototypical in terms of like today's style of quarterback. Yeah, I think he'll be able to come in and fit right in and play that
Mm.
style. I think
Okay.
he's going to be. I think he's going to be good because he knows there's something about pedigree, man, and with that position, it's important not just to have the skill set, not just to have the talent, right? Not just to have the athleticism, but to actually have the mental, right? The mentality of
So
what it
important.
takes to
Yeah.
be a quarterback,
Yeah.
right? How do you act? How do you build up? How do you interact with the team? How do you handle the media? How do you take hard coaching? All of that comes into play for you to be successful. If you're lacking in any one of those categories,
It'll show.
it'll show and you're not going to be successful. I have to give Jalen Hurts a lot of credit because I think he was coached up by his dad,
That's that.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can tell Jalen, you can coach him hard.
Yeah.
He can handle adversity.
Yeah.
He doesn't get too high. He doesn't get too low.
Yeah.
He does the work. And he's
Yeah.
talented enough to execute and make plays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You got these guys with all the talent in the world, but they get too high or they get too low.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You end up like what's his Cam Newton, right?
Yeah.
He motions all over the place.
Right. 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 Yeah. Yeah.
Then you can get to the game, but you can't seal the deal, right? So
Right. Yeah.
I think Arch Manning, he's going to come in, and I think he's going to do. Anyone that picks him up, they just better do right by him.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
now you're beholden to the organization. So Doc said he doesn't think he's coming out. I think that his camp that they're playing it smart. It depends on where the chips fall in this draft order.
True.
Right?
True. Yeah.
The right teams, right, being positioned high enough, he's gonna come out this
Yeah.
year,
Yeah.
right, or this next draft.
Yeah.
You got some garbage teams, and when I say garbage teams, I know any team that's drafted high from a win-loss perspective is theoretically a garbage team,
Right.
unless they got that via some sort of a trade. Okay, but if the organization is poor and it sucks, he's gonna wait till the next year.
Yeah.
Couple things to that point. If heaven forbid Aaron Rodgers gets hurt in Pittsburgh and Pittsburgh ends up having a bad season and Pittsburgh got the number 1 pick, Arch may come out. It's a stable organization,
Mm-hmm.
right? And not to throw teams under the bus, but if the Jets don't have a good year and the Jets got the number 1 pick, he may stay in college next year, even though it's New York and it's not going to be his uncle's team. It's the other New York team. That's not a stable organization, right? So
Yeah, and I'll put the scenario out there because I'm being selfish. If the Falcons have a bad year, right, and they end up with the number 1 overall pick, right, That's the Rams pick because we got their number one pick next year.
Wow.
And we know the Rams are going to be looking for a quarterback to come in and
Yep.
be to replace Stafford. I think if a situation like that comes up, he's going to come out.
Now, to hit the original question, the reason why I don't think he's going to come out is that the Manning family is playing this long term, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, college would be great, championships, etc. But they're looking for this dude to have a great 15 to 20-year NFL career. And right now, he is still in study mode, learning the nuances of the game. And the less pressure on him, the more he can study and learn and pick up stuff, the better off he's going to be, right? That's why there's no pressure in Texas to have had him play over Quinn Ewers.
Right. Right.
Because the family was like, nah, let him sit.
And let me ask you this, Doc, because I agree with you, but I think strategic wise as well, you have to weigh these options, and I wonder how they weight these particular scenarios, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to put my Rams back in the equation. If they see that the Rams have this number one pick, right? Do they say, okay, let's forego the next season? He's going to go to the Rams because the Rams are going to handle him accordingly. They're not going to push him out there and force him into a situation that he's not ready for, right? As opposed to the Jets or the Browns, right? Like, if that happens, then like you can't trust those organizations.
Right.
But if it's an organization where you know, okay, they got their ducks in a row, they're not going to put him in harm's way unnecessarily. They're going to wait until he actually knows. And then you have a coach that knows actually how to coach the position.
Yes.
Yeah. I would see it would be difficult for me to fathom them saying, no, we're still going to wait.
Because there become such conversations behind closed doors, like, yeah, we're going to sign Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston or Garoppolo, or bring in some quarterback for 4 games, 8 games, 12 games, 17 games, until we know, and you all know, Arch ready to play, right? We're not going to subject Arch to what Peyton went through, where he got beat up that first year and threw with 20-something interceptions.
Yeah.
He learned on the job. Now we ain't gonna do that, right? There'd be those conversations, and they'd be like, we already got the handle. We already thought about that. These are the 5 quarterbacks we thinking of bringing in, and you'll know, just like with Eli, we'll know when it's time to play Arch, because Eli didn't start game 1.
Right.
But I think preparing this guy to be able to play, and I'm not saying he's going to be the bee's knees, but this is going to be the highest floor quarterback we've seen come into the league in a long time.
Yeah.
I think, barring injury, the worst he's going to be is Eli Manning minus 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah. The worst.
Yeah, the worst.
Yeah. Which is Phillip Rivers.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the worst he's going to be, is Phillip Rivers.
Yeah.
Career-wise.
No, I guess I keep bringing up the Rams because I have a sneaky feeling the Rams are targeting him. And the reason why
y'all think ahead.
Started with this last, so the Longhorns, their pro day, this past draft, Les Snead went to the pro day, right, when Ewers was throwing, and there's a snapshot. You got Ewers over here. He doing his thing. Les Snead on the sideline talking to Arch Manning and the coaching staff. I'm like, what this man doing? Like, you can't be showing your cards, right? But he over there talking, and my thing is, why Manning even there?
Why you there? Right.
Les Snead over there talking to him. So, anything. Who knows what they're talking about actually? But the fact of the matter is, we put ourselves in a position next year to get a quarterback. We have 2 first-round picks.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see everything unfolds, because if we are in a position, I think, where we are high enough, I think Manning may jump.
Yeah.
He may jump up.
Yeah. That's why I brought this up, and you guys made some excellent points on this, because I was saying the same thing. I was like, there's no rush. The family is, he been set since he was born. He really has no pressure to, like you were saying, Doc. He don't have to start. Yeah, he didn't have to start in Texas, or Lee. I don't know if you said that, but he don't have to start in Texas. I mean, he could go there. We want him to sit. Family saying we want him to sit. We want him to learn. We want him to be, in this environment. We want him to have to go through the years. If this was some other family
to earn it,
right, they would have been like, no, he need to start like right now. He need to be over yours like right now. He need to be coming in as a freshman playing.
You have some families, but you have some families that they trying to be legendary. You see, so
yep.
That's what they trying. They on another, they on another rip. So
yeah. No, never.
So
it's just what it is.
It's just what it is.
Yeah.
It's implied.
And they both have 2 Super Bowls. So
yeah.
Yeah. But are they legendary?
I'm a Sounders. I'll say it. I'm a Sounders. Right? So
Lee, we will see what happened in Cleveland this year, man. We will see what happened in Cleveland. That's gonna be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The name, man. You gotta invoke the name.
I know. I just have, hey, I'm just quoting him.
Yeah.
I'm just quoting him. Right? I ain't saying his name. I'm just quoting the man. That's all.
Oh man. Yeah. We will see. But yeah, man, I just wanted to bring that up. That's good commentary on that. That I think I definitely will be following, Arch this season, seeing what he's doing in Texas and seeing how, he execute that offense. I know he'll be ready. It's going to be bumps in the road. This is going to be his, first time starting, but
he's not. I don't think he's going to be the best evaluated quarterback coming out.
Yeah.
God, there's a lot of good quarterbacks coming out this draft, and so I think he could very well be somewhere around, maybe if he was to come out again, he would probably be around the 3rd, 4th quarterback.
Okay.
This is going to be a good year for quarterbacks.
Yeah. It should be. Again, the college season is going to be interesting as well too, just to see how everything kicks off with that leading into NFL. But all right, man. Yeah. So that's all I had, man. I think we covered a lot there on that. So guess we'll catch up again. All right, man. See y'all later. All right.